Thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for your interest in registered apprenticeship and in particular this program. Um, I am chief over the contract and programs unit within New Jersey Department of Labor Officer Apprenticeship. I'm also joined today by my colleagues Bill Sarbuck, who's a supervisor over the contract and grants program unit, and our colleagues Tammy Noviton and Lauren Kremper DiFilippo. So our team manages all the competitive grant programs that are awarded, and also the notice of grant opportunities that we issue through our office and through the New Jersey Department of Labor. In addition, we also have two other units within our New Jersey Officer Apprenticeship, the Employer Engagement Unit and also our Policy and Evaluation Unit. So Dawn Lynch is the chief over the Employer Engagement Unit, and John Basika is the chief over the Policy and Evaluation Unit. And again, that makes up our whole Officer Apprenticeship within New Jersey Department of Labor. So as most of you may be aware, U.S. Department of Labor is the agency. The U.S. Department of Labor Officer Apprenticeship is the registering agency for all registered apprenticeship programs in the state of New Jersey. So there's a single source that would be the review and approve any registered apprenticeship programs that are being considered started in New Jersey. They also provide technical assistance to any employer who's interested in starting a registered apprenticeship program. As within the FY23 PACE Notice of Grant Opportunity states that each application must have at least one registered apprenticeship program as a partner within their PACE application, because as you know, with PACE, you also have to have at least 25% of your participants be placed into a registered apprenticeship program. So obviously, based on your application and the number of individuals you plan on training, you'd have to have enough capacity to place those individuals into registered apprenticeship programs, at least 25%. And we'll get to more details a little bit later on. So this is a competitive grant opportunity for this pre-apprenticeship and career education grant opportunity that we have. We do have $2 million available in funding. So we do expect a large number of applications, and so only high quality applications would be funded with that limited funding that we do have. And let me just, so what we'll also do is during this presentation, we'll do a PowerPoint presentation. It'll give an overview of our New Jersey Officer Apprenticeship, our office as a whole, and then we'll talk a little bit more particular about the grant opportunity for PACE, as well as the system called IGX, which will be the grant management system that we use for the application process. It will probably take about 45 minutes to maybe an hour to cover all that information. What we'll do at the end of the presentation is open up for any questions or comments anybody may have. All questions should be entered into the chat box. That will help us account for all the questions, keep track of the questions that are being asked. We will go one by one at the end to make sure each question is addressed. And if somebody is on the phone or wants to verbally express their question, we'll do that at the end as well. But it really help us out if the questions are asked in the chat box, so we can accurately address any questions that are asked during the workshop. After today's workshop, for everybody who's registered, that has registered for this workshop, we will send an email that will include the PowerPoint that we're going to present. We'll have a frequently asked questions document that we'll have as well, and then we'll also include the grant opportunity, the notice of grant opportunity as well in that email. So what I'll do at this point is we'll start with the presentation, and then again at the end, we are recording this session. Thanks, I just saw that as well. We are recording this session as well. This may help out any colleagues that you may have in your organization, maybe that could not attend the workshop. We'll include that link within that frequently asked questions document, so everybody will be able to access that. It'll probably be a few days before we can send the information out, but I would say by early next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll make sure we send the email out, as I said, with the frequently asked questions document, the PowerPoint, and within that frequently asked questions document will be a link to the recording of this session as well. And this way it enables you to go back in case you missed something, you can review information that you might need. So we'll start with the first slide, please, Tammy. So I mentioned New Jersey Officer Apprenticeship. So U.S. Department of Labor is the agency that does the registration and the overseeing and administration of registered apprenticeship in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey Department of Labor in March of 2018 under Governor Murphy announced the development of the New Jersey Officer Apprenticeship within New Jersey Department of Labor, as well as the creation of the New Jersey Apprenticeship Network. Next slide, please. New Jersey Apprenticeship Network is really building, it's more than just our office here within Department of Labor, really. It's a lot of partners and a lot of not only different agencies, but employers, individuals, uh, companies that is building what we call the apprenticeship network. So even by your company or by yourself being on this call today, kind of makes you part of this apprenticeship network. It's a lot bigger than just it's an ecosystem more than just you know Tammy, myself, Lauren, and Bill being in an office. It's really all of us working together really to build what we call the apprenticeship network and expand registered apprenticeship. So our office works very closely with U.S. Department of Labor, and our office serves as the one-stop shop for employers, nonprofit organizations, secondary, post-secondary institutions that are interested in developing apprenticeship opportunities. Um, we do support new and expand upon existing pre-apprenticeship programs and U.S. Department of Labor registered apprenticeship programs within the state of New Jersey. Our mission also includes establishing pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs in non-traditional high-growth occupations and sectors. Um, our mission also includes expanding the New Jersey Apprenticeship Network to facilitate interactions with industry, educational institutions, training providers, and job seekers. Also to help better align secondary, post-secondary adult education and occupational training to meet the labor demands unique to New Jersey and develop career pathways that lead to economically sustainable wages. So with registered apprenticeship as a whole, the department feels that it provides a great um, career development pathway with registered apprenticeship. It also provides a good living wage, as you know, with our grant opportunity, a minimum of $15 an hour or more must be paid to apprentices or even individuals placed into employment. So we feel that as we build upon registered apprenticeship, it's really going to provide New Jersey residents with more opportunity to well-paying jobs and training as well. Again, our mission also includes helping apprentices earn college credits and access robust career counseling and increase diversity and inclusion in apprenticeship programs. And lastly, remove economic barriers to training and upskilling through targeted investments. So this PACE program is one of a number of programs that we have within our unit to help provide seed money funding to organizations to help build upon apprenticeship opportunities. Next slide, please. So the New Jersey Apprenticeship Division is to develop sustainable talent pipelines by aligning pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs with the needs of employers, training providers, and job seekers. So we're focused on driving economic development through skills and educational attainment, concentrating efforts on sector-focused, demand-driven training and education programs that lead to better paying careers, advanced credentials, and skills attainment. And lastly, developing, as I mentioned earlier, an ecosystem that provides multiple years of economic support to businesses and individuals for occupational skills training, leading to sustainable wages and upward mobility for workers, and increasing talent pipelines for employers. Next slide, please. So registered apprenticeship is a registered apprenticeship program is defined as a registered and approved by U.S. Department of Labor and provides classroom training and on-the-job training in an occupation recognized as a apprenticeable trade and meets the program standards of enrollment and graduation under the federal regulations. So simply put, U.S. registered apprenticeship is a U.S. Department of Labor training model that combines on-the-job learning as well as on-the-job classroom training as well. Classroom training and on-the-job learning. Those are the two components. So typically apprenticeship is a full-time position. It is a full-time job. And during that full-time employment, you're learning not only on the job, but also in the classroom setting as well to build your skills as an apprentice. Next slide, please. So components of registered apprenticeship include, obviously you need employer and industry involvement. All the occupations that are approved by U.S. Department of Labor have industry involvement, and that's how they were created, and that's how what they call the standards of that apprenticeship program, which includes a number of hours of classroom training, number of hours of on-the-job learning that occurs, what exact training will occur during that apprenticeship program. All that includes that employer and industry involvement. Another component obviously is related to technical instruction or what we call classroom training. In addition to that would be the sponsoring employer that's going to be providing that on-the-job learning to those apprentices. Obviously, another component is an apprentice. You need an individual that's going to be in the program. And one of the requirements of U.S. Department of Labor is that you must have a progressive wage structure for skill gains. So the employer decides what the starting wage is and what the progressive wage structure will be for apprentices. But if someone starts on day one as an apprentice and say they're in a 3-year, we'll say a roofer occupation for 3 years, during that 3-year period, there's going to be required training during that time frame. There's going to be classroom training provided, at least 144 hours of classroom training every year. So as that apprentice is going through that training, they become more valuable to the employer because their skills are increasing. So the thinking behind that is as their skills increase, their wages should increase as well. So that's that progressive wage structure. It's based on the employer setting. It could be every 6 months, it could be every year, but during that term of that apprenticeship program, there needs to be an increase in wages during that time period. Next slide, please. So this gives a quick overview of where we are as far as the state of New Jersey with a registered apprenticeship in the state. So currently we have 8,276 active apprentices within the state of New Jersey. We have 1,166 total registered apprenticeship programs within the state. And since Governor Murphy took office in January 2018, we have registered 555 new registered apprenticeship programs, which is a 91% increase since 2018. Over 12,600 new apprentices have been hired during that time frame. As we mentioned earlier with the U.S. Department of Labor, as an apprentice completes their registered apprenticeship program, they are issued an industry recognized credential or completion certificate. So over 6,300 industry recognized certificates of completion have been issued. And comparing the data from the last quarter of 2017 to the current quarter of data that we have, total apprentices have increased by approximately 1,493 apprentices. That's the highest number of apprentices that we've had since 2013. And lastly, this growth trend accounts for a 22% net increase statewide in active registered apprentices. So you can see by a combination of a bigger focus by U.S. Department of Labor on registered apprenticeship, a bigger focus on the state of New Jersey Department of Labor in particular, and the investment. We've had over $30 million in grant funding being available since 2019 till now. So we have the department through the governor and our commissioner has really invested in registered apprenticeship. And in particular, this program that we're talking about today, the pre-apprenticeship and career education program, is to help New Jersey residents prepare themselves for ultimate, hopefully, entrance into a registered apprenticeship program or other quality outcomes, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a picture who we are, Department of Labor, Officer Apprenticeship. And what I'll do at this point is now turn it over, I believe, to Lauren, who's going to talk a little bit more about the PACE opportunity, the PACE grant opportunity.
You did. Good morning, everyone. So the mission of the PACE grant is to create a pipeline of qualified individuals and enable them to transition into sustainable career pathways. We present opportunities to underrepresented or disadvantaged populations and remove the barriers to training. You drive economic development through skills and educational attainment and promote the value of pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs. The elements of pre-apprenticeship is an approved training and curriculum, a strategy for long-term success, access to the appropriate support services with a one-stop connection, promote greater use of registered apprenticeship, meaningful hands-on training that does not displace paid employees, and facilitated entry and or articulation. And you should note that you must have an established connection to at least one registered apprenticeship program or sponsor. Apprenticeship programs that target high growth, high vacancy, or emerging industries are highly encouraged to apply, including but not limited to the following targeted industry sectors: advanced manufacturing, biopharma and life sciences, energy, utilities and infrastructure, retail, hospitality and tourism, financial services, insurance, transportation, logistics and distribution, information technology, cybersecurity, renewable energy, green economy, healthcare, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, construction and building trades, and or public service. Organizations awarded in fiscal year 22 PACE contracts are not eligible to apply for fiscal year 2023 PACE funding. The PACE aims to strengthen access to registered apprenticeships for individuals by recruiting from targeted populations and providing appropriate services to enable participation. So some targeted populations, which greater weight will be given to proposals to recruit from the following: women, minorities, youth, unemployed, vocational school and post-secondary students, ex-offenders, veterans, people with disabilities, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act eligible individuals, that's the WIO program, and underrepresented populations. And you want to have support services to include, but not limited to, childcare, transportation, expungement programs, communicating criminal background to employers, housing services, counseling, referrals, mentoring, financial literacy, and/or obtaining a high school equivalency diploma or GED. Your quality placement goals. So at the conclusion of the grant, PACE grantees will be expected to place 80% of participants into one of the following outcomes: a minimum of 25% placed into a USCOL registered apprenticeship program, employment related to the pre-apprenticeship training received at no lower than $15 per hour, and admission into a post-secondary college or occupation-specific career training program consistent with the pre-apprenticeship program. Grantees can include a need-based stipend in your budget to enable the participation. Stipend payments can be paid to the participants on a bi-weekly basis and cannot exceed $250 per week. Funding and contract information. Funding for fiscal year 2023 is expected to be $2 million and is contingent upon the availability of funds. The contract will be 18 months. Competitive proposals will have a maximum cost per head of $12,000. Awardees of initial contract may also be eligible for a one-year renewal based on performance and availability of funds. Awarded applicants will have administrative responsibilities included but not limited to archiving records, completing monthly reports, and attending monthly meetings.
Can I just add something real quick to that slide, Lauren? That maximum cost per head of $12,000 sometimes gets a little bit confusing. Ultimately, what's allowable is if you're asking for $120,000, you have to serve 100 people. So it's per person. So you divide the 12,000 by how much you're asking for in the grant fund request to us, and that will show you whether or not you're within the guidelines of being under 12,000 or at that maximum cost per head. Obviously, you don't have to be at 12,000 per head. That's just the maximum allowable. So just for clarity purposes.
Leveraging student aid and career pathway partnerships via ability to benefit law. Federal Higher Education Act, Section 484D, a student without a high school diploma or recognized equivalent may be eligible to receive financial aid if the student is enrolled in an eligible career pathway program and is determined to have the ability to benefit from education or training. Incorporating the ability to benefit funding in your PACE proposal. So there's braided funding, which use student aid like a Pell Grant and career pathways for opportunity youth, which is ages 16 to 24, reconnecting to education and employment opportunities, or adults upgrading skills to advance their careers. Do co-enrollment in basic skills education and post-secondary training for an occupation. ATB students are eligible for college financial aid once they pass a college readiness test or earn 6 credits towards a degree or certificate at a Title V post-secondary institution. The federal definition of career pathway, this is per HEA WIOA and page 7 of the fiscal year 22 PACE NGO. Career pathway, a combination of rigorous high-quality education, training, and other services that A, align with the skill needs of industries in the economy of the state or regional economy involved. B, prepares an individual to be successful in any of a full range of secondary or post-secondary education options, including registered apprenticeships. C, includes counseling to support an individual in achieving education and or career goals. D, includes as appropriate education offered concurrently with and in the same context as workforce preparation activities and training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster. E, organizes education, training, and other services to meet an individual's needs that accelerate the individual's education and career advancement to the extent practicable. F, enables an individual to attain a secondary school diploma or recognized equivalent and at least one recognized post-secondary credential. And G, helps an individual enter or advance within a specific occupation or occupational cluster. Okay, the application process.
Actually, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick, I'm sorry, Lauren.
Sure.
Talking about that ability to benefit section there, I just want to be clear. It's a section of the federal law that allows possible funding. It's not a requirement. You don't have to provide disability benefit information in your application. It's just another thought or another opportunity for applicants to think about. What we'll do in the FAQ question, we'll have a contact email address if somebody wants to talk to the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority who oversees that. You'll be able to reach out to somebody, but we're including the FAQ document just so, but it's a little bit cumbersome. It might be a little bit overwhelming, but I just want to be clear that it's not a requirement that you have to include that in your application. It's just something to think about. So thank you, Lauren.
Again, the application process. Your first steps, if you're considering applying, is to ensure you are an eligible entity to apply. You can refer to pages 11 and 12. Authorized official registers in IGX, instructions on page 20. Your authorized official submits the letter of intent via email, page 26. NJDOL approves the authorized official in IGX and provides access to the application. You obtain your tax clearance certificate from the New Jersey Division of Taxation, page 27. And you register with Department of Treasury, which is NJ Start, on page 27 also.
And can I also add to this, Lauren? Sorry. Some of these things take some time to get. So these are listed here as your first steps. But if you're really considering applying for the grant, you should really get started on some of these things right now. Especially your tax clearance certificate. Sometimes the Division of Taxation is behind on things. Sometimes you have liabilities that you need to take care of in order to get a clear tax clearance certificate. It's always best for you to get started on that as soon as possible. It has to be within the last 3 months that you've received it, right? Tammy, is that correct? It's 3 months?
6 months actually.
6 months. Okay, I'm sorry. So it has to be, you have to have received it within the last 6 months. So if you have anything that's older than 6 months, you're going to have to get a new one. So make sure that you are kind of getting on top of that, because it will affect your ability to go to panel possibly for consideration, and it'll definitely affect your ability to receive the grant if you were awarded the funds. As far as registering an IGX, we'll get into that a little bit further on some future slides within this PowerPoint. And your letter of intent is necessary for us to be able to give you access to the application. So we'll get into those things a little bit further in the future of this in a couple slides, actually, not really far into the future. But as far as the tax clearance certificate, I would suggest you get on top of that as soon as possible. And registering with NJ Start and Treasury is necessary to be done by the time we get to our grant uh, issuance to you, because that's how we are capable of paying you if you receive the funds. So it's an important part of what you guys would be looking for. Sorry, thank you.
Your proposal components, and these are your required documents where all required information must be submitted in the IGX system. your applicant information, your project location, consortium partners, any previous funding, your PACE deliverables, your program narrative, an executive summary, an implementation plan, a program sustainability plan, tax clearance certificate, a budget summary and details, and then any miscellaneous attachments. For an in-depth look at this proposal, your executive summary should be a maximum of 3 pages. Your projected project plan chart is necessary, and an overview of a proposal highlighting the key points in relation to the NGO. Your program narrative, however, is a maximum of 20 pages. It's your training plan, which details your objectives, your plan structure, and anticipated quality outcomes. You should include your training outline, work experiences, connection to your registered apprenticeship, a connection to employment, retention and support services required for your apprenticeship elements, expected outcomes, and the administrative responsibilities. So here's an example of the projected project plan, which is attachment 3 in the NGO. So you want to include the chart below with your executive summary. For each quarter of the grant, you want to enter the following information. Your participants to be enrolled, which is the total number of PACE participants, both new and previously. Expenditures, you're to provide an estimated expenditure of PACE grant funds for each quarter of the grant in each of the following categories. Personnel, which would be salary and fringe benefits. Non-personnel of marketing materials and office supplies, and direct student costs, which is books, instruction materials and supplies, stipends, safety equipment, etc. Okay, an in-depth look of the proposal, which is the implementation plan. That should be a maximum of 4 pages. You want to describe how training will be implemented, the training plan that you included prior. Your project schedule, which includes timelines for benchmarks and program completion, as well as recruitment and placement dates. If multiple training rounds, include estimated start and end dates, and a plan for retention activities to the participants. Your sustainability plan is a maximum of 3 pages, and that's to describe a strategy for long-term success absent of grant funding. Evaluation criteria. All applications are considered new applications and will be evaluated based on quality, comprehensiveness, completeness, accuracy, and appropriateness to the NGO. This is a competitive process, and applications are reviewed by a selection committee using a pre-established set of requirements. And now I'll turn it over to Bill so he can explain IGX and the registration. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. So as I was saying a few seconds ago, we'll talk a little bit about registering an IGX in our new database. So any of you who've applied for previous grants with us have used our Sage database. IGX is a derivative of Sage. It's the newest version of Sage, but it is a new database. It's a new web address. The web address you see here, njdol.intelligrants.com, is where you will go in order to register. If you were registered in Sage, there is a good chance that your registration pulled over into our IGX database. Some of you, if you registered within the last, like, let's say 8 to 10 months, may not be in there yet. My suggestion to you, and the easiest way for us to deal with this, is for you to submit your letter of intent to us, telling us the who your authorized official is, and also in your email when you send it to us, tell us anybody who you will need registration in IGX for. If you know you were not registered in the original Sage database, or that your registration is fairly new in the original Sage database, just go in and follow the instructions I'm going to go over right now. If you believe that you were registered in the old database and it was old enough that you think it would be pulled over into it, just let us know who needs to be registered. We'll check and see if you're in there and let you know once we review everything in IGX based on your letter of intent if something's wrong and you need to go in and re-register. The registration process is simple and easy. As you're looking at this slide, this is literally all the information that you need to provide in order to register yourself and or your organization. If your organization is new to Sage, when you register, that will also register your organization. Okay, so first things first, if you are going to have to register in the IGX database, you're going to go to the web address as you see here, njdol.intelligrants.com, and you're going to click New User under the Login tab. When you do that, it'll pull up this registration form. You provide all the information that it requests here. If for some reason you don't currently have your SAM number, your UEI number, it's called a Unique Entity Identifier. It's a U.S. It's not even really a Department of Labor. It's issued by a federal government agency, and it's specifically used currently for anybody who's applying for federal grants. The federal government, because they provide state funding to states, requires us to use it on all of our grants. In the past, you may have had to get DUNS numbers, Duns and Bradstreet. DUNS is no longer in existence. It has gone away. It's been taken over by the SAM database. I will warn you, it is a little bit hectic and a little bit difficult sometimes. Sometimes it's very simple and very easy. You go in, you register yourself with the SAM website, and it'll give you access. We'll provide you with some additional information on how to go and register in the SAM database with the information that we send you in reference to this meeting afterwards. But you will have to provide that to us before we go to contract if we were to issue you guys funds, any of your agency's funds. As you see circled at the bottom, if you could please list within there, it says on this slide women and minority veterans, but it actually, if you could list PACE, because this is for the PACE grant. We use some of these slides for multiple grant programs, as you can tell. And so we would ask that in that box where it says please notify us the program you're applying for, that you enter PACE, P-A-C-E. And then when you're done with that, you just click register. It'll send the information over to us for review and approval. And as soon as we get your letter of intent, that's when we'll go in and look for you and approve you. If you don't send your letter of intent in, don't expect us to go in and check and see if you're in there, because we don't know that you're in there yet. Okay, so send in your letter of intent once you've completed registering, and we'll go in and look for it and give you access. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do now is give you a little bit of an overview of the IGX system. We'll also provide you after this a page by page. If you submit your letter of intent and you receive access, we'll give you a page by page user guide on how to complete the applications. But this is just going to give you some basic understanding of how the database works. If you've used the old Sage system, it's not that much different. This page actually looks almost exactly the same as it did in the old database. Some of our pages within look a little bit different, and the navigation is a little bit different and hopefully a little easier. But ultimately, those are the only things that have changed from our old database to this new IGX database. So once you've registered, your registration is approved and you've received your notification from us that your application has been issued to you, you'll log in to the database by using the username and password that you created when you registered. Next page. That'll bring you to a landing page, a dashboard page. Your dashboard page is going to have any My Tasks and any opportunities that you may have. My Tasks is where your application will be once you've started it. In order to start your application, you're going to have to search for the opportunity in which you're looking to apply for, in this case being your FY23 PACE application. You'll click on the filter button and that'll open options for searching. Once you click on the filter, you'll choose Department of Labor as the provider, and you'll type in PACE in the name and hit search. When you hit search, it'll pull up the opportunity because we've now given you access to it. And you'll be able to click on where it says PACE application 2023 under name. You click right on that and it's a hyperlink to the application. It'll start your application. Next page. Once you've started your application, it'll bring you to what we used to endearingly refer to as the I agree page. It's not necessarily called that anymore, but it is just a page that gives you a little bit of detail and description about the grant that you're looking to apply for. The goal here is for us to make sure that this is really what you are interested in applying for. Sometimes we use acronyms. We always use acronyms. Unfortunately, it's government. So you see the word PACE and you think, oh, that's it, exactly what I want to do. But we also have a program called PLACE. So it's very similar, very close. It could be easy to get confused. So just check and make sure that this is the grant that you're interested in applying for. If so, you choose agree. It used to say I agree, sorry. When you do so, it'll bring you back to your dashboard. Um, and it'll ultimately allow for you to then open. Actually, I think when you hit agree, it brings you right into your application. This note that's next to it is if for some reason after agreeing, you go back to your dashboard and you can't find something, uh, in your My Tasks, you can search for it under searches. But also, if you're at any time wanting to go back to your dashboard, you just click that home button at the top. Those two are your main ways of navigating through, unless you have an application that's open and it'll be under your My Tasks at that point. Next slide. So what you see here is what your application will look like when you first log in and you click agree. It'll bring you into a landing page, which will just give the details of your organization, and it'll assign your application an application number, which will ultimately turn into a contract number if you were to receive funding. Um, on the left-hand side of your screen here, you'll see all of the pages that you need to complete, which many of them Lauren just went over a little more detail about what you have to provide in them. Uh, Ultimately, you'll complete them page by page. When they're completed, there'll be a check mark in the box next to it. On some of these pages, you may have to create multiple pages. When you do, when you hover over that page, it'll bring up another box that'll show you the additional pages that you've created for it. And ultimately, that left screen will now be your navigation panel in order to go from page to page. Once you've completed any of the pages, please be sure to use the save button at the top. There used to be a next button on each of the pages when you completed them. We've actually taken it off of the pages because the next button was causing some confusion. So it was actually a save and next button. So in situations where you were completing things and then you said, oh, wait, no, I didn't mean to do that. And then you just hit next to go to the next page, it would save all that work you did and sometimes cause confusion. It seems a little easier and less confusing to us to just have you click on them on the left-hand side. As you can see, they pretty much follow you. You can scroll up and down on the left-hand side and it won't change what you're doing on the right-hand side of your screen. But just be sure to save the pages before you navigate to another page when you've completed it. And then when you're done, to click on the next page that you'd like to work on, whether it be the following page or a page later on in the application. It's really up to you. You do not have to complete them in order if you don't wish to. Next page. Once you've completed all the pages and your application is ready to be submitted, you will scroll down on the left-hand side all the way to the bottom. There's a lot of things there, so you're going to have to scroll down a little bit. When you get down to the bottom, you'll find a field called status options. If it's not open already, if that little arrow pointing down is pointing in towards status options, you just click on that little arrow and it'll open all the options that are available to you. You'll see two options available to you: application submitted and application canceled. If for some reason you've decided I'm no longer interested in applying for this grant, or if you know you're not going to be able to get it done in the time frame in which we set within the NGO, please go in and click application canceled. If if you're trying to submit your application, you've completed it fully, you go here, you click some application submitted. At that time, the system is going to do a validation. It's going to validate that all the documents that you are supposed to have completed are completed and that none of them have any errors or issues with them. If it finds that you have any, it'll list them in this document validation. You'll click on each one, go to those pages and fix anything that they tell you that you need to fix. You'll also see explanation points where I told you there'd be check marks in the boxes. That also is a quick and easy way to know that you have something you need to fix on any of the pages. But if for whatever reason you don't have any pages come up under your document validation and you click that application submit, you'll get this text box at the bottom that's just saying, are you sure you want to submit your application at this time? If you're sure, you click OK. If not, you hit cancel and it'll just bring you back to where you can go to any of the pages you'd like to and make edits. Most likely you're going to be sick and tired of looking at the database and ready to move on with your day. So you'll click OK and move on, and that will submit your application to us. Don't look in this status options box to see what status you're in. What we've had is a lot of people look and say, uh-oh, it says application canceled. Well, it says application canceled because that's the only status that you have available to you in order to change it into. It's not that your application is canceled. It's that if you wanted to cancel it now, you could. It's up to you. It's your organization and your application. So don't get confused when you just see application canceled in that box. You can't submit it again. You've already submitted. It's not necessary. If you've clicked submitted and you've clicked this OK button, your application is submitted. It would not give you the ability to click OK here. It would have that document validation pop up if your application wasn't ready to be submitted. Obviously, though, if you're confused or concerned, feel free to reach out and ask any questions to the team. We'll give you an email address that you can reach out to us at the end. Next slide, please. So very important dates for you to concentrate on, pay attention to. These all appear within the NGO in multiple places. Your letter of intent and registration in the IGX database must be completed by 12 p.m. December 30th. And then your application due date is going to be by 12 p.m. January 6th. I can't tell you whether or not we would extend anything. We tend to try and stick to these timeframes, especially in a situation where we're giving a good amount of time like we are here with this PACE grant. We do try to get our applications submitted by noon. That gives us time to compile everything and get them into prepared for panel as quickly as possible. There could, like I said, be an extension, but if we do provide an extension, it'll most likely be an extension to all grantees that are applying. It is really very rare that we are providing individual extensions to somebody just because you couldn't get something completed, especially if you wait till the last minute to start your applications. Please start your applications as soon as possible. There's a lot of information that's required. It does take some time, and by some time I mean a good amount of time to complete the application. So be prepared to put that time and effort in if you want your application to be considered, and for your opportunity to be hopefully granted in the long run. It's very difficult to jump in and try and do this application in a couple days there at the very end, and put in an application that's going to be considered and have a good chance at getting a grant. So it's just a recommendation that I say, please get your application started as soon as possible. Final decisions on awards are communicated to the applicants no later than 45 days following our panel review. We usually hold a panel sometime within 2 weeks of the submittal date. That panel will be a group of individuals chosen by the Department of Labor, not necessarily specific to our unit. Sometimes not even Department of Labor employees. We use the U.S. Department of Labor, a lot of cases to participate in these panels. But those panel members will review all the applications, score them based on the criteria that's provided throughout the NGO, and make a decision on whether or not you pass, fail, or if you are better or in what the competition was against others who have applied. Based on that, recommendations will be submitted through our organization and choices will be made on who will be a recipient of the grant and who won't. As stated earlier, we have $2 million available, so there is a chance that we will get more applications than we're capable of issuing funds to. Based on what the budgets are that people submit. So, you know, we could grant out to one agency, we can grant out to 20 agencies. It really depends on what the availability is and how good your applications are. Next page, please. So as Jim was speaking about in the beginning, these are the contact names and contacting people within the Office of Apprenticeship. Nicholas Toth, Nick Toth, he's our director. James Manning, chief of our contract administration unit, Dawn Lynch, who's the chief of our employer engagement unit, and John Basika, who's the chief of our policy and evaluation unit. We also have an email address that I'm going to give you now, which is for our entire contract administration unit. That's all of us that are on this call, all of us who are responsible for this NGO. It is apprenticeship unit. Doesn't matter whether you capitalize or not. Apprenticeship unit at dol.nj.gov. It's also within the NGO, so you should be able to get it out of there as well. But that's another email address if you have any questions or any issues. No, thank you very much, Jim. um, you know, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. That goes to everybody in the unit, so you'll get contact usually within within minutes or hours, but definitely within 24 hours you'll get an email back in reference to your question. Okay, next page. So now we would like to move into the question and answer portion of the technical assistance workshop. I know Jim had asked us to please post them in the chat. So if you haven't posted any of your questions, please get them in now. But I'll hand it back to Jim and we'll move into answering those questions.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks to Lauren and Bill for presenting as well. And before we go into the questions, and thanks for entering them into the chat. That really does help out. Just a couple quick things. So, right, so the pre-apprenticeship program that you're proposing to do, right, should lack of better words make sense, right? So if you're going to train, argument's sake, 25 individuals. So you have to think about that, right? So I'm going to train 25, 80% must complete. And then I have to have at least 25% go into registered apprenticeship opportunities. So if I don't have any registered apprenticeship sponsors or employers in my application, you're not going to be able to achieve that. So you have to make sure, that's why we say you have to have at least one registered apprenticeship sponsor or employer within your application. But that means also if that employer is only going to hire one individual and you're going to train 25, and you need to place 25% into registered apprenticeship, you're going to need to have at least 5, 6, 7 opportunities, right? Positions that are available. So the more that you in your narrative explain, your employer partners, the best application would include a very clear picture of the opportunities that individual be placed into registered apprenticeship opportunities or employment at $15 an hour or more. We do include as a quality outcome placement into other training or even college, but that's not supposed to be the primary focus of this grant. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to invest state money to train somebody for 8, 12, 16 weeks, wherever it might be, and to say, oh, no, now they're going to go to college. And they plan on going to college from the beginning, but we just want to give them the training, right? It doesn't make sense. But you may have an individual that is exposed to your pre-apprenticeship program and says that, say it's construction related. And, I'm really interested in construction, but I really am focused on project management. I'm going to enroll in a college in a project and a construction management degree, something like that. That we want to count as a quality outcome, right? So just make sure when you're, lack of better words, telling us a story within your proposal, that the story makes sense, right? We're going to train this many people. Once they're trained, they're going to be placed into these opportunities. We have these employers that are partners with ours. These were the opportunities going to be. And the best application would have those employers part of crafting your pre-apprenticeship program as well, because you want to make sure your pre-apprenticeship training aligns with your employer partners' needs as well. So just some food for thought, things to think about. As Bill mentioned, we can't emphasize this enough. Please don't wait till December 29th to start work, or I'm sorry, January 5th to start working on your application to submit it the next day at noontime. You're not going to have a quality application. It takes time to prepare your narrative, time to prepare your information. It's going to take time, as mentioned, Bill mentioned about tax credit certificate, the administrative side of things. So just and the sooner that you submit your letter of intent, the sooner we can give you access to the application, the sooner you can go into that application, take a look at it and get a feel for it and start developing that information. I'll stop harping
Can
on
I
that.
also add, I'm sorry, that
Of course.
just because the due date is and the due day and the due time is January 6th, you can submit it anytime up until January 6th. So you don't have to wait till January 6th to submit. You can submit it ahead of time. If for some reason something changed and you needed to make a change to it, you just reach out to us and we'll send it back to you so that you can make those changes. Don't be afraid to submit because you might want to make some edits to it at a later point. Prepare, get it submitted so that you don't, you know, things happen, life happens. If something was to happen and you weren't able to get to a computer between then and the submittal time, I would hate for your application not to be submitted, because of what happened in set that had nothing to do with your application. So get your application submitted when it's complete. And like I said, if you had a situation where you needed us to send it back to you, just reach out and we can get it back to you. But either way, we'd only be able to do that up until the noon January 6th timeframe.
And I would also just add to that, don't call us at 11:55 on January 6th saying, please send it back to me. It's not going to happen, right, in 5 minutes. So, and also there's usually that last minute crush of issues that happen. Anyway, enough of that. We appreciate your interest in this opportunity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by going into the chat by reviewing the questions in the order that they were entered. What we'll do is after we hit all the questions that are in the chat, we'll open up in case anybody's on the phone or if anybody else has any other comments or questions to ask as well. So the one question that was asked is, can an organization submit 2 applications if they target 2 different clusters and have different teams specialize in them? No, for that situation, for all situations, it should be 1 application from an organization. It's acceptable to have multiple um, career focus. It's okay to have, pre-apprenticeship. You can have 2 or 3 pre-apprenticeship focuses on whatever. Say it's construction related, another one's healthcare related, whatever it might be. Just make sure in your application, in your narrative, you're very clear about the training that's going to occur, how many weeks, all that stuff. But it should be 1 application from each organization. Let me just scroll down here. Do secondary high schools follow all procedures for work-based learning, hazardous, non-hazard occupations when placing students in pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship programs? Example, visit students once every 10 days, assigning a workplace mentor, non-hazardous, hazardous teacher endorsements for coordinators. I'm going to be honest, I don't know anything about Department of Education requirements. That would, you'd have to speak to your New Jersey Department of Education about those requirements. So I'm really not sure how to answer that question, but basically, as long as if a high school is applying, they need to meet the requirements of New Jersey Department of Education. But for New Jersey Department of Labor for our PACE program, except for what's in the NGO, there's really not. So you develop your pre-apprenticeship program, you can develop around in school, if it's after school, whatever that program is. But if you're a high school student under New Jersey Department of Education, you need to follow their rules. And there's some rules if kids are if students are under 18, about going on work sites and all that stuff. All that you need to comply with if there's Department of Education requirements, but our requirements are within our notice of grant opportunity. There's really nothing else. Obviously, there's Department of Labor work standards and about children about under 18 students working and stuff like that. But basically, I'm not really at liberty to really answer that question about requirements that Department of Education has. Is there a minimum number of hours students have to participate in pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship programs? Do pre-apprentice or apprenticeship programs have to take place during school hours, or can it be after school during the summer months? So there's 2 different things in that question, right? One is pre-apprenticeship, other one is apprenticeship. So let me start with apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is a full-time job with an employer or a union or other sponsor, and that employee is working full-time in that approved registered apprenticeship occupation. So that's registered apprenticeship, that's apprenticeship. So obviously, if you're going to school, you can't work full time. Well, you can't, it may be difficult if you're a high school student working full time in a job. I guess it's possible, but no, it's a full-time job. Pre-apprenticeship, your application would define what your pre-apprenticeship program is. There's some that do have some classes during the school time that students in school. There's some that occur after. There's some that happen during the summer months. You're going to craft your pre-apprenticeship program around your partners. That may include schools, may not, and it doesn't have to include schools, right? Because you can serve. No, you don't have to you don't have to serve in school youth. You can. You can also serve out of school youth. You can serve unemployed individuals, whoever the gamut is, right? There's a full gamut of who you can serve. So there's no requirements of when the training takes place, but your application would craft that program around how many weeks. There's not a there's not a minimum number of hours. There's not a minimum number of weeks, but you have to craft a program that's reasonable and meets the needs of your partner employers. And I'm going to just use the word reasonable. Next question. Is a newly established partnership with a registered apprenticeship program eligible, or do we have to be able to show a history of success in our application? So you can have a partnership, just say you have a registered apprenticeship partner that you just developed that relationship with. That's no problem at all. Obviously, a stronger application, you would show your history of success of similar type of work-based learning programs. So if your organization provided training maybe for other grants or other type of grant funding that's workforce development related, I think it makes your application stronger. But if you don't have that experience, it doesn't preclude you from applying, right? And everything I'm going to use makes your application stronger. It makes it, because it is a competitive process. And as Bill mentioned earlier, we know we're going to be receiving more applications than we have funding for. So only those highest quality applications are going to be able to be funded. So the highest quality applications are going to have a clear, we're probably going to have experience doing workforce development, maybe not specifically for PACE, but for other training programs for individuals. It's going to have a clear connection to registered apprenticeship, going to have a clear connection to employment. So those are going to be the strongest applications that we consider. Please confirm this round of applications will be submitted through the new system just presented, and a new account is needed even for those with existing Sage accounts. Bill, that's a
take that,
true.
Jim?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
No problem. So as I was saying earlier, the confusion that is in place right now, and hopefully this is only for this round because it's new applications, is that there's a possibility that your registration pulled over from the old Sage database into this database. We will check and see if you were registered in there, if you notify us that you were registered in the previous Sage database when you submit your letter of intent. If for some reason we see that you're not in there, we'll tell you that you need to go in and register. If you're sure that your registration was older than probably, I'd say, the last 10 to 12 months, you're probably already registered in the IGX system. You could technically actually go in and try and log in if you wanted to. I would suggest, though, that you notify us and let us know, because if it's been that long since you've been in, that we put you in, the likelihood is your registration in IGX is what we call inactive, and we'd have to activate you. So it is not necessary if you were in the old Sage database that you register necessarily, but there is a good chance that you may have to if your registration wasn't older than probably the last 10 to 12 months. Okay. Hopefully that's clear. If not, just throw it in the chat or we can have a conversation offline.
And again, and all applications are in the new IGX system, not in the old Sage. It's in the IGX system, the links that we have within the NGO. So when does the 18-month grant period begin and end? So I would say, because applications are due on January 6th, I would think probably a February 1st start date. It might be a little bit later than that, depending on how quickly we're able to get the contract signed and everything. I would anticipate roughly a February 1st start date. That's probably reasonable, right, Bill? You would think?
I would say either February 1st or March 1st.
Maybe March 1st,
Definitely
right?
March 1st. I would not
Yeah.
say that it would go any further than March 1st start date.
Yeah,
And then it would be 18 months from then, obviously.
that's a fair statement. So I wouldn't get hung up on exactly when that period is going to begin, but I would say for planning purposes, February 1st or March 1st, and probably March 1st is more realistic, but I know we're trying to get everything all obligated and contracts developed as quickly as we can. So I'd say February 1st or March 1st as a start date, as an anticipated start date. Question is, how can the funds be used to support attainment of a GED? So I guess I would ask you, Michael, what would be the cost that you would incur for that? And actually, Michael, if you don't mind responding to that, what cost do you anticipate having to support the attainment of a GED? If you can unmute yourself
You
and
have to
maybe
unmute.
answer
Yeah,
that.
hi, Jim.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, what we were thinking of, we already have an out-of-school youth program, and if we apply for the grant, we would uh, try to open this up to more individuals and put them into that out-of-school youth program, and where they would go and prepare for the test and then take the exam.
Okay, so what costs would be incurred for preparation of the GED for the attainment?
Well,
That's your question, right? How can the
right,
funds be
right,
used
yeah.
to support?
Well,
So
we
what
would use
costs?
it to recruit more students, number one. Number two, we would use the funding to prepare, we'd put them into our classes and give them, besides just preparing them for the test, we give them career education. We also put them into work-based learning experiences, once
So
they
Michael,
complete the
I guess
exam.
I thought it'd be a much quicker. I'm sorry, even I guess I went down this path with you. I thought it'd be a quick, hey, we want to buy books for individuals that are going to get
Oh, okay.
GEDs. Yes. So you're talking about a whole program. So you have to, as you're developing, to answer your question specifically, your PACE program could be serving out of school youth, right? And it could include workforce readiness training, but you have to meet the requirements of the NGO as well. And then incorporated with that, we do have in there that the attainment of a GED can be an allowable expense. So if you're going to have any cost to somebody, say books for the GED, any cost for obtaining that GED, if there's a cost for the vocational school, the high school, whatever that might be, those actual costs can be included within your budget. But what you're explaining to me is a little bit more than just how we support the attainment of GED. You just explained a whole pre-apprenticeship program, it sounded like, right? So
Yes.
that you have to develop your program reasonable costs within the confines of the NGO, maximum allowed per person, all that stuff. So I hope that answers. I can always talk to you offline if there's more information that you need. But
Yeah, and just for some additional clarity, Michael, the goals of PACE are none of them equate to obtaining a GED. So that would obviously be an additional goal reached for those participants. They'd still have to be working towards going into a registered apprenticeship or obtaining employment or moving into post-secondary education that hopefully works towards employment in the future, as those are the only goals of the PACE program itself. I'd also suggest that you be careful, because we do have other funded programs within the Department of Labor that are specific to helping adults or youth work towards obtaining a GED. The WIO, a Title II program, stuff like that. So, you may be looking at the wrong program. It may be a conversation that we should have offline
that's what I think
to
too.
just discuss that. But just for
Yep.
purposes of this question, it could be. It would probably be difficult for you to be working specifically just to a GED, if that was the ultimate goal for your participants.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I caused us to go down this rabbit hole, and I shouldn't have. I thought it was going to be a simple. We want to use the funds for X, and I thought Michael would be entertaining me with that simple answer. But Bill, Michael, let's talk offline. That'd be the
Okay.
best way to do it. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So next question: where do I find New Jersey registered apprenticeship partners? So there is, in the chat box, I put the apprenticeship.gov website. That's the U.S. Department of Labor website, and they do list by county and state all registered apprenticeship programs that are approved. But I think if you're developing a program just by pulling partners off of a website, that may not be the best way to do it, right? I think you have to have a relationship developed with your partners. I'm not saying that you can't, but it might be tough to do that in a month and a half, to develop a relationship with a partner to do it. Not impossible, but so to answer your question specifically, that apprenticeship.gov website, if you navigate to resources, and then there's a way to pull down by state and then by county apprenticeship programs that are approved within the state. And then where do I find New Jersey Registered Home Health? Again, within that apprenticeship.gov website, there are, you can, once you search by county or state, I believe there's also a way to search by industry, I believe. But when you look at that list, you'll be able to see those occupations that are approved by for those sponsors. There's another question. Can you explain the difference between this grant and the GAINS grant? If awarded GAINS funding, can a company also apply for PACE? So GAINS provides funding for apprenticeship training. So that's somebody, if you think about the start date of an apprentice, right? The start date of the apprentice that's registered with U.S. Department of Labor and hired by an employer, that start date, anything that occurs after that start date would be apprenticeship training because they're in that apprenticeship training program. Anything that occurs before that start date would be pre-apprenticeship, preparing the individual for that apprenticeship opportunity. So GAINS is focused on apprenticeship training, PACE is pre-apprenticeship training. So it is possible for a company to be awarded GAINS and PACE funding because it's two different services that you're providing, right? You're providing PACE services for pre-apprenticeship training, workforce readiness training, job shadowing, occupation specific training, and then the individual gets placed into employment, and then GAINS would be able to pay for that. So that's the two differences, and hopefully the GAINS funding announcements should be happening soon. I'd say next week or two, hopefully. And then the PACE funding, obviously applications are due in January 6th. So we hope by the end of January we'll have the announcements for the PACE program. Let's see. My business is an after-school learning program. I train instructional assistants to teach math and reading to students pre-K through high school. Would my employees qualify for this program? I am only the employer and trainer. Would I qualify? So again, this training would have to be to train individuals for placement into employment or a registered apprenticeship, at a minimum of 25% have to be placed into registered apprenticeship opportunities. So if you meet that criteria, then I say yes, but this is not to train your current employees. It's not an incumbent worker training type of grant program. It's pre-apprentice to prepare individuals for training for eventual placement to employment or into registered apprenticeship opportunities. Another question from Adam. A March start date would be good for secondary schools, so student participants will graduate, allow them to become, okay, good. It's really going to depend on internal processes here at Labor, but again, it'll probably March 1st or February 1st. Next is, will this grant come around again in April 2023 or later for a July 1st start for schools who are looking to implement new apprenticeship programs at the start of 2023 school year? So our fiscal year begins July 1st. So most of our programs are funding if the state budget passes on time. By the time the state budget is approved and our Treasury figures out exactly what the allotment is to New Jersey Department of Labor, and then we figure out exactly what our budget is for our unit. That usually occurs during the months of, say, August, maybe even to September. So that's why even with these grants here, now we're in November with the NGO being released. So usually we have our notice of grant opportunities released, I'm going to say around October of each year, maybe a little bit sooner, maybe a little bit later. So I would say if everything goes well, I think there's intentions of continuing the PACE program, but I would think that would be probably released more like October 2023 or around that time period. There is a possibility, and we'll see if there's additional funding that becomes available, or if we award less grant funding that we expect, that we may have a round two. I don't want to get anybody hopes up, but there's always a possibility where in the next few months we may issue a round two for this PACE program. That's not in the plan right now, but as we get closer to the end of our fiscal year or closer to the next few months, we see what funding we have left over in our budget, and then we also may have other funding that we may be available. So there may be a round two, but to answer your specific question, I would think October 23 would be the possibility of the next fiscal year announcement. Let's see, can we partner with the YTW programs and construction trades unions? So you can partner with them, but you don't forget the YTW grantees have their own specific outcomes that are based on placement as well. So if you're partnering with a YTW grantee, they need to achieve their outcomes and you need to achieve your outcomes with PACE. So it may not make sense to be with a YTW program because, or partner with them because again, they're focusing on their own. And that's a pre-apprenticeship training program as well. Same type of program, just a little bit different demographics. So you can, but it has to make sense, right? As I said earlier, you're the best application. You're going to be focusing on your own programs. And Mike, I would say, give me a call a little bit later on so we can talk a little bit more deeper about stuff. I think it'd be helpful. And then lastly, who else would qualify as a New Jersey apprenticeship partner? So you know, an apprenticeship partner would be any employer, union, organization that is approved by U.S. Department of Labor for specific U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeship occupations that are approved. So we provided the apprenticeship.gov link that has it, but that would answer your question. So it's really any approved organization that has an approved registered apprenticeship program with U.S. Department of Labor. So I believe that's all the questions. Let me just scroll down a little bit more. Yep, that's all the questions that I see in the chat box. Are there any other questions that anybody verbally wants to ask or any other comments or anything before we wrap up the session?
I just wanted to add, for any of you who joined late, we will send out the PowerPoint, a recording of the meeting and an FAQ, which will include the recording at the bottom of it, along with a copy of the NGO and some additional information on how to get your UEI or unique entity identifier, your SAM number. After the meeting. So if anybody's concerned that they missed a lot of information, we'll send it out to you afterwards. There's also going to be another one of these on the 28th, I believe, right? At that you could go into the same Eventbrite and register to attend if you feel like you missed information and you'd like to attend that session and get that information at that session. So just
It's
wanted to share
actually
that.
it's actually Tuesday the 29th at 1
29th.
p.m. Yeah, so that's all. Okay, any before we wrap it up, that's all the information that we have to present. We will develop a frequently asked questions document. And then we'll send that, as Bill mentioned, we'll send that out. I'd say early next week, probably Tuesday or maybe Wednesday the latest. And then we appreciate your interest in registered apprenticeship and particularly in the PACE program. We hope this has helped you out. And again, we are available if there's any questions as you're moving through your application or any questions in that process. We're here to help out Bill, Tammy, Lauren, and myself to assist you during the process. So thank you for your interest, and we hope that we have real good quality applications that come in. Thank you, everybody.